Sahana Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvi Navaditamastu Ma Vidveshavahai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman, the reality, protect us. May Brahman sustain us. May Brahman illumine our thinking process. May we not find fault with each other, with the world, or with the teachings. And may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. Welcome back from our break, all of our class members here, SRV associations, and our live streaming audience, those of you who are with us. We have another hour or so to move through more teachings on this, in this Advaita Vedanta series. We're using the Jnana Matra, or the intelligent particle, as sort of the foundation for last week's class and this week's class. That is, the classes 2 weeks ago and today. And we just reached the part of the intelligent cell that has to do with dissolving, arupa mananasha, how things are projected and how they're sustained and how they're withdrawn, which is a triple movement. We used to call it creation, preservation, and destruction, but nowadays, to get more in step with the ancient philosophy of India, we're calling it projection, sustenance, and withdrawal, precisely because no death or destruction happens in this process. Things simply come from unmanifested Prakriti, avail themselves of form, sport for a while if you wish, and then give the form up and go back to unmanifested Prakriti. So it's a march back and forth between form and formlessness. The thing probably to know about that process, it's been described as dreamlike and evanescent and illusory and ephemeral and so forth. The thing probably to know about that is you're going back and forth from form with a small f to formlessness with a small f. But there's another formlessness which escapes that return, that coming and going between these different paths, called non-dual formlessness, or samadhi, or nirvana, if you want to use those terms. That would have to be capitalized because that's the end of all processes. It's the end of all ideas or dreams of coming and going. It's the state which the seer reaches by meditating within, described in many ways, like if thine eye be single, you shall know the truth. It's that state. And so what we like to do, since in a sense non-duality can't really be taught, it's something you can point to. It's just that if I say, like, Buddha points to the moon, you shouldn't just look at his finger. You should look where he's pointing. So these great seers have been coming, these avatars, these great souls, and been pointing the way to formlessness all this time. We're not reading the signs correctly. We're not reading, interpreting the words correctly. In other words, we still cling to form. And when we cling to form, then we cling also to formlessness with a lowercase f. We just go into deep sleep, and it's formlessness with a lowercase f. We go into death, it's formlessness with a lowercase f. What's happening is you're going from manifested nature to unmanifested nature, and back again, and returning again and again. That's where the whole idea of many lifetimes comes, and karmas are formed, and some skaras are formed in the mental complex which bring you back, drag from birth to death and death to birth to soul, if you want to quote Vivekananda's poem on the matter. This thirst for life forever quench, he would say. So it's that life of prana only. I was saying, I think, in this class before, that prana is the greatest addiction of all. There's no greater addiction. Alcohol, drugs, whatever people get addicted to, there's no greater addiction than prana. Prana is really the underlying energy and foundation of all of these things. Life force, if you want to call it that. So people have a thirst for life. They want to come into form, and however, when they come into form, then they're not doing it very consciously, and they're not also listening to the words of the seers. When he points at the moon, you look at his finger instead of at the moon, which means if he points towards Buddha nature, or if the great seer points towards Advaita, or points you towards Samadhi or Nirvana, you misapprehend and you begin to think, well, I'll go into formlessness at the time of my death, and then I've reached heaven. Yes, probably true, you have reached heaven. Heaven with a lowercase h. Basically, that's where your ancestors have gone, and that's where the celestials and the higher heavens also abide. These forms and names, which are as dreamlike as this state. Basically, waking state is dreamlike, dream state is dreamlike. That's the teaching. Swapna, Jagrat and Swapna, waking and dreaming, are called dream number 1 and dream number 2 by the seers. And then Sushupti, when you get into deep sleep, well, that's something to be meditated upon, and try and bring your consciousness to bear there, because then you'll see unmanifested Prakriti. It's in deep sleep where everything goes into that formless state with a small f. And you need to see that, because you need to see where you're going after death and where you're coming from. You need to see where your baby is being born from and where your great-grandfather is passing away into. And you need to know that death and birth are basically just words that people have assigned for the soul manifesting itself out of unmanifested nature and unmanifesting itself back into unmanifested nature, and that's all that's going on. Like a wave rising in the ocean and falling in the ocean. There's no birth and death there. It's simply a projection. It's a taking on of a form and a giving up of a form, and that's all. Nothing else happens. There's no change to the ocean. There's no addition when the wave arrives on the ocean. There's no subtraction when the wave dissolves back into the ocean. It's called non-transformation. Aparinama. Great word in Sanskrit. One of the most ancient principles in India. Non-transformation would be the English word we'd have to select to come as close as we can to describing the principle of non-transformation. A person who knows non-transformation loses all fear, loses all doubt, loses all limitations, all impediments, and feels completely at home anywhere, in the body, outside the body. Because basically what he's coming to know is that if he's in form, he's in manifested Prakriti, and if he's out of form, he's going back to unmanifested Prakriti. And once he knows that, he can then pit himself against the great goal. Gata, gata, paragatam. I've gone beyond the goal of rebirth, attaining a human form, giving it up, attaining it again, giving it up, escaping the animal world, escaping the insect world, escaping the realm of the 5 elements and so forth. Maybe even going beyond my ancestor realm to meet some god or goddess. I've gone beyond those goals. I've gone beyond the goal of heaven. And what I've found is my true nature, formlessness with a capital F. And when I found that, then I saw that the coming and going from nature to unmanifested nature is this kind of dream movement of the soul, of billions of souls who are dreaming their separateness, dreaming their individuality. So if you want to sort of make a quip on it, you go from the individual to the indivisible. And in that indivisible you find your true nature, and you never wander from it again. And that's true whether you come into the body or not. You see the difference between a Jivan Mukta or a Bodhisattva, a living liberated soul, is that when they come into nature, into form, they know there's no coming and going involved. It's an assumption. Probably the best way to say that is that they're associating with form, but they're never identifying with it. And that's a masterful soul who can do that. That is, they're going to be aware while they're living. That's what Jivan Mukti means. It's a living liberated state. So you know all this. You've known it. You're a past master. And if you haven't known it then you find it out now. And you remind yourself of it. And what is it that does the reminding? Your intelligence gets to you finally. It's sort of like the ultimate hound of heaven. It's after you. And it's going to find you no matter what you do. It's a bloodhound. This is your blood. You see. The real blood is not red. It's of a transcendent color. It's the color of intelligence, whatever color that is. And earlier I said you cannot really see intelligence, so nobody's ever actually seen it face to face. It's as close to formlessness as you can get without actually giving up all conception, because intelligence does the conceiving. Shankara said, the mind is the chariot, and the intelligence, is the will that makes the chariot go from world to world, and the ego is all along for the ride, enjoying the ride, you see. So that triple complex there, actually, antakarana, they put it into four complex. The inner cause of all things, antaha karana, is the fourfold mind. Mind itself, intelligence, thought, which got added later, and then ego. If you ask a Vedanta, what's the mind, say it's fourfold. Immediately, they know that. And as we were growing up in the West, I know I was that way, I always wanted to know where will came from, and where thought came from, and what my mind was, and I never had anyone tell me. Nobody could tell me. And if they could, they couldn't connect thought with mind, and in any intelligible way, or mind with intelligence, or intelligence with ego. The whole thing, these are all sort of separate little compartments somewhere. But when I finally found out there's a complex, and it's that complex that's going from birth to death and death to birth. And the death to birth is actually called by different names by the seers. It's called projection, withdrawal. Birth is projection, life is sustenance, and death is withdrawal. So you erase those words. Erase. Right? And you assign new appellations to those. And when you do, you're free. You're free of a certain amount of weight that you've been carrying for many lifetimes. You feel it. You feel unburdened. You're a knower now. You may not be a realized soul, a fully enlightened being, but you're a knower of truth. Thou shalt know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. So it must be, two movements there. First you know the truth, and then finally, once you know it, you're set free. So you're going to have to ponder that truth for a while in your deepest contemplations, as the Gita Jnanam says. So when you come upon a teaching like this given to you in such a manner, then you know it's not just the projecting power, it's also the pervading power. It's not just the pervading power, it's the protective power. It's not just the protective power, it's the dissolving power. Nothing's left out of the equation here. And you connect it all, it's yours. That is your intelligent cell. That's not someone else's. It's not someone else's that you don't have. It's just that some people have been making use of it, and some people haven't. Some people remember it, some people have forgotten it. Some people, even beyond remembering and forgetting it, have actually realized it, and they're living in it. 3 men walked into a Gyanakasha. Buddha, Christ, and Krishna, they all walked into a Gyanakasha. And they saw copula there and they said, Sankhya very much. Because Sankhya gave us the 24 cosmic principles, and every system since then used it. The Tantrists used it to add 12 more tiers on top of that. The Shaivites came out with 36 cosmic principles. Oh, we'll outdo you. More like it was that you need to know what happens to you when the intelligent self kicks in. It's going to be beyond unmanifested prakriti. It's going to start to get into subtle, even causal worlds. See, there's a place made of jnanam. Over here in the West, we're all, it's made of cotton candy and candy canes and fairylands and everything. Well, let's go to that place. It's the land of Oz, but the land of Om is different. It's completely other. And actually that's a word used in the Upanishads. It's completely other. There's nothing like it. It's made of pure intelligence, and you can have a land made of sugar, and we all know that's not all that good for you. But if you have a land made of your own intelligence, that's going to be beyond bad and good. From good to best to better, Vivekananda used to say. There's a triputi to think about. And I'm pretty good now, but what's best? What's better than best? I'm going to go from this goal, gata gata, to the paragata, the supreme goal. So I'll go to this world made of intelligent particles, to my mind, which is the house of intelligent particles, to the realm of intelligent particles itself. And there I will realize the self. So in the middle of this class, when we took the break, we were still looking at the dissolving the mind stream, because I think it's very important that we know Lord Shiva, as it were, that we know how to dissolve this, because we're all pretty good at projecting and we're all pretty good at sustaining. We can attribute it to Divine Mother. Thank you for sustaining us with this wisdom. But most people just say, thank you, Mother, but they don't know how to use their own wisdom, so they don't have to impose upon her. There's a beautiful image of Mother Kali that Ram Prasad describes in his songs in India, in Bengal. And he says, Mother Kali is there dancing on Shiva's breast, the Lord of Dissolution. She's dancing there. And basically, streaks of blood are running down her black form, like crimson flowers floating on dark waters. There's 2 lines to meditate on, very inspiring. Streaks of blood are running down her beautiful black form, like crimson flowers floating on dark waters. So then you'd say, it's very beautiful, thank you for the metaphor, thanks for the inspiration. But what's that mean? Why are streaks of blood running down my precious mother's form? Those are the sacrifices that she's made because you're not using your intelligent particle. She's having to come here and undertake your karmas. She's having to send one of her emissaries, like the Kali Avatar. I'm sure if 4 or 5 million people now know who the Kali Avatar is, then others should begin to pick up on what just happened to us when Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa came to earth. With Holy Mother, Sri Sharda Devi, with Swami Vivekananda, with Swami Brahmananda, with Swami Turiyananda, with the 16 direct disciples, and with all the lay disciples and so forth. So this is a very profound occurrence. It's a spiritual phenomenon of the most unique kind. We're here in the first 150 years of it. In fact, 2013 is the 150th centenary of Swami Vivekananda's birth, and the world is going to celebrate it. We will be in India at that time. We will see you all there, live streaming partners, in Calcutta in early 2013. We'll be there in 2012 December and then into January, so that we can take part in the celebration of this truly great soul, this harbinger of Vedic wisdom, this person who is an endless supply of Jnanamatra, and who has come amongst us so that we will awaken our Jnanamatra. Even awakening one of them would be a profound effect on the human being. Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother both used to say that. Holy Mother would say, Sri Ramakrishna said many things in his life, and they were all true. But if you just, as a devotee, take one of them and meditate on it and understand it, that will be enough for you. So I'm saying it's like awakening one of your, to the force of one of your intelligent particles. If one bad apple ruins a barrelful, then it should be the other way. In the spiritual world, one really fine apple should make all the others perfect. That's the force of positivity. That's the force of spirituality in the aspiring human mind. So you just better make sure that your mind is aspiring. One Swami told me once, spiritual life in the beginning is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. But then, later on, it reverses. Basically, once you get the idea of it and you participate in your own spiritual awakening, then it all becomes inspiration. It's the fire of inspiration. We've talked about it in other classes, the power of fire. Power of fire starts off as suffering. If you can transform your suffering, it becomes inspiration. If you transform that, then it becomes the fire of intelligence. If you can transform that, it becomes the fire of yoga. And if you can transform that, it becomes the Shakti fire herself. It's Mother herself, it's Mother Wisdom. Infinite, eternal, timeless, deathless, full of infinite power and a force for positivity, force for transformation. Basically, if you talk about the goddess Kali, you're talking about Kali Durga and Tara. There has to be a Tripura Sundari. That's the goddess of this age, Kali Durga Tara. In three forms, but one goddess, one ultimate goddess. And they all preside over the transformation, spiritual transformation of human souls. Those beings who are interested in cutting themselves in the image, if you want to use a Christian term, the image of God, they will go to the Mother and the Mother Wisdom. And they will awaken themselves and they will charge up. You know what I'm saying when I say charge up? Sri Ramakrishna, one of his most famous sayings in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna is, you must charge up the chitta. That is, the mind cells. There's something in there that's dull. It's like a battery with no acid. The acid's beginning to lose its power to recharge itself. So the mind's beginning to become dull. And the senses become dull. And your life becomes dull. And it's a very hard trend to reverse. So he says, just go and charge up the chitta. You know, it would be like if you could plug something in there and then plug it into your teacher. That would be the best way. Which is actually what we did when Lex Hickson and myself and other people of our generation as Vedantists went to Swami Sheshananda and just sat with him for days and weeks at a time, several times a year. We were charging up our chitta. We were learning to keep our torch lit. And if we went back to the world, we'd keep it lit for a month or two and it would go out and we'd have to go back to him, How did you do that again? Because the mind is recovering from its sojourn in Maya, its dance with ignorance. So it has to recover from that. All these actions you did in ignorance, they created karmas. They have to be undone. Now, it's not necessary to undo them one at a time and take as long time to undo them as it did to create them. Just go to Mother Wisdom. She has a sword, He has a wife, you know. Shiva has a wife. And she has a sword, and it's called the sword of discrimination, sword of wisdom, and she cuts away ignorance with it. And you want to learn how to live on the edge of that sword. So when it cuts away ignorance, you get the first view of wisdom. You want to be on the cutting edge, in other words, don't you? In your business, in your life, with your children, with your spiritual practice, with your mind, your intelligence, and with your spirituality per se. You want to be on the cutting edge. So then if you could talk Vishnu out of his chakra for a little while, even better, talk Divine Mother into wielding her sword for you. Because there's nowhere else Mother is either than inside of you. She's not outside somewhere. That is, you can see her as your wife, as your child, as your mother, and so forth. You can see Mother Intelligence working, but those are forms. If intelligence is her very nature, then she must be almost formless herself. You're not going to see her with these eyes. The closest we got was to see Sri Ramakrishna's wife, Holy Mother, Sri Sharda Devi. And that was like looking upon the living goddess, they said. But she was very modest, very shy, very quiet, very indrawn. The feminine, what used to be considered the best feminine principles in the early days of our life are epitomized in her. So very indrawn. Once some people went to see her at the Dakaneshwar Kali temple where she lived after the master had passed, I think. Or maybe it was during. They came up to the gate and asked the guard, "Does the Holy Mother live here still?" "Yes, she does." "Where can we find her?" And the guard said, "We don't know." They'd been guards there for years and they'd never seen her. She got up at 3 a.m, did 100,000 repetitions of the mantra for her children, went down to the river, probably jumping over alligators at the time, take her bath when no one was around, no one would see her, go back, disappear into the Nahabat, do her meditations, do her puja and so forth. No one ever saw her. That's how modest and retiring she was. So beautiful songs were written about her in that respect. Lajya Patavritti Nityam Sharda Jnana Dayake Papebhyo Na Shadaraksha Kripamayi Namostute. That is, Lajya Patavritti Nityam Sharda Jnana Dayake Papebhyo Na Shadaraksha Kripamayi Namostute. It's like a mantra, beautiful. See? Lajya, full of humility. It's like the first thing you'd have to say about her. She's just not there. She's not an ego. She's pure intelligence. She may be sitting there on the floor kneading bread when you come see her with a plain white sari on, but she can take her Atman outside and look at it anytime she wants and tuck it away again. She knows her true nature that well. Hasta amalakka, that is, like a fruit in the palm of her hand, she can see her true nature all the time and simply tuck it away and then go back to work. Why? Because work and non-work don't go together. Action and inaction can't live together. Samadhi, God vision, and the world cannot live together. Oil and water don't mix. Where's my problem? See? We have a little container that we cap off with colored oil and water. See, and it divides in half, and then we shake it, and it mixes for about 45 seconds, and then they separate. So we teach the children that's why God and nature cannot mix. They're of different natures. In other words, one's sentient and one's insentient. But we're busy conjuring up all the creatures of our fancy, as Vivekananda says, objectifying God in every way possible when God is not an object. And in the meantime, if somebody comes along and tells them we can't objectify God, then we don't know how to find the eternal subject. So what I'm saying here is basically your intelligent particle is a doorway into the eternal subject. And that you must get a hold of, awaken, and charge it up. Charge up the chitta, so that the mind vibrates at a high level all the time. There's no reason to come down. You create a default zone and you say, I'm not going any lower. And then you raise the bar, isn't it? Now I'm not going any lower than that. And the next time I do my practice, I raise the bar again, and that's my new default zone. Until I'm just living with the seers. And now 4 men walk into a Jnanakasha. Oh, when will come that beautiful day when I'm going to dance in ecstasy with Jesus, with Gauranga, with Buddha? When am I going to enjoy the company of the illumined souls and dance with them in ecstasy? That's a beautiful song in India. Ram Prasad, I think. So, like attracts like. It's true here with the ignorant, with the evil, with the studious, with the intellectual, with the conventional. It's also true when you enter the religious field and become dharmic and start to practice sadhana. The sadhaka attracts other sadhakas. The dharmic person attracts other dharmis. The enlightened souls attract each other. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, one hemp smoker loves the company of another hemp smoker, but if a prince comes down the road, he'll run away. So they got ragged clothes and smelling like cannabis and so forth, and they're all addicted and having a great time. They love the company of each other when they see each other. Somebody completely free of intoxication comes up the road dressed in finery, all clean and everything. Oh, I don't want that, you see. So like attracts like. So you'll be surprised how much assistance you have when you charge up the chitta, when you come to understand the intelligent particle within you and how it became everything, and how you made it become everything. Don't forget that connection. You can't just say, oh, thank you, God, for nature, and thank you for answering our prayers, and for all sorts of things. The prayers were answered before you were even born. This is the answer to your prayer. Now, if God wants anything, he wants you to make use of that, not to waste it. And definitely not to forget the connections in it. Connect earth to smell, and water to taste, and fire to sight, and air to touch, and ether to hearing. That's your first connection. And then all of a sudden you can live a connected life. That is, you won't live a fragmented life anymore. Your mind will have some ground to exist on, some foundation. Now I know the senses and the elements befriend each other. I know one came out of the other. That's why a fish loves water and a pair of gills. He made sure he had everything he needed for his little watery life, you see. Even evolution says so. So if you can't believe that a fish will develop gills over time and so it can breathe underwater, live in water, then why would it be so hard to understand that the human mind developed all of this so that it could live here? You're going to assign it somewhere else to some god that you've never seen and probably never will see, or maybe slough off the responsibility for it on the devil. That makes sense. Where are you in the quotient? In fact, God and devil are in your own mind. All knowledge lies within you. All ignorance does too. Unfortunately, the mind is dual by nature. It's called manas. Dual by nature. It's in the makeup of things. here and form to be good and bad, and pleasure and pain, and life and death, and virtue and vice. It's in the nature of things. There's no fault there, no blame. The only consideration is whether I should even get into a body in a world like that. At least without bringing my magic wand with me, made of intelligent particles, so I can get myself out. So dissolving the mind stream is very important. There's a new book underway that's being written by myself about dissolving the mind stream. I say basically, quit PMSing, start DMSing. Quit pissing and moaning, and start meditating and acknowledging the greatness of the human mind, the noble soul. So DMS is basically dissolving the mind stream. And it happens because you've found the 24 clues along your path. You know basically that earth, air, fire, water, and ether are 5 of them. Now you know that there are 5 senses that connect with them. Guess what? You now know one of the secrets to creation. Shishti Rahasya, one of the secrets of it is that it's built on quintuplication. Pancha. There are 5s out there. But to speak of 2s and 3s and the ultimate oneness or not two-ness of things, there are also 5s out there that are very important. 5 pranas, 5 senses, 5 akashas, all sorts of them. So it's not so hard to say, 24 cosmic principles, that's too much. You see, couldn't there have been 8? Well, Krishna gave you 8 in the Gita, but you didn't do much with them. You see, he said basically it's the fourfold mind and the threefold mind and the 5 elements was the early designation of Prakriti and unmanifested Prakriti. He says, behold, my divine nature 8-fold. That's how he puts it in the Gita. But know that this is my Prakriti. You have not yet heard about my unmanifested Prakriti. Let me explain that to you. And then let me explain to you what's beyond lowercase formless and uppercase and lowercase formlessness. This thing called uppercase formlessness. That is your true nature, my true nature. And then you will be availed of the highest truth. And go anywhere, do anything. You'll be fine. Sri Ramakrishna used to say that about his direct apostles who were to become the monks, earliest monks of the Ramakrishna order. If they know who they are and who I am and what God is, that's all they need to know, and I don't have to worry about them. They can be in the world, I won't have to worry about them. They know Brahman is formless. I'm the highest form of God called Ishvara, in earth, on earth for them, and they are the Atman. What else do you need to know? How about that for a Triputi? A triple teaching. Brahman, Ishvara, and you as Atman, your soul, with a capital S. Is there anything better to contemplate than that? If you just have that and have faith in it and just know that one Triputi, as Holy Mother said, know one thing he said to the essence, isn't that going to be enough for you? You'll be free of birth and death for all time, free of ignorance for all time. So these 5s march out, 5 elements, 5 senses. Add another 5 senses and you have 10 senses, because you have 5 senses in dream tonight. So you might as well say I also have 5 subtle senses, the Gyanendriyas. There's the Karmendriyas and I have the Gyanendriyas. That is walking and locomotion and movement and procreation and evacuation. Those are your gross senses, but your subtle senses are wisdom senses, basically. And really, you might say that's the first inclination that you have a wisdom particle, is that the eyes can see, and the ears can hear, and the tongue can taste. Have you ever thought about it? I mean, that's what it takes, is to think about why the eyes see, why the ears hear. What is that? It's a miracle. No, that's not quite what I mean. It's the intelligent particle in the eyes, in the ears. It's the intelligence behind them that's listening, that's seeing. And it's the fire that intelligence created so you could see in the form of a sun. It's the air that you created so the vibration of your teacher's words coming across as the ethers could enter into your ears and you could hear. And then you could understand, in case you had forgotten. Forgetfulness being really the ultimate sin. In Vedanta, if there is any sin, it would have to be forgetfulness. That's all. It's not a black mark on your soul. You'll never be anything other than what you are, who you are. That can't change. You can't change the Atman, and you are that. So, just a matter of who's going to awaken to it. They asked Lord Buddha that. What kind of souls are there out there? And he said, the awakened and the unawakened. Those who are awake to their Buddha nature, those who are still asleep to their Buddha nature, that's all. It's all he would commit to. Shariputra or Ananda or one of those disciples of his Noble Eight asked him, well, isn't there the awakening? Isn't there a third class of soul? And he said, no, basically, the awakening are already awake. They just don't know it yet. So maybe you can count yourself among those if you don't think you're fully awake yet. I'm awakening, so I must be awake. And the only problem there, rule of thumb, don't fall back to sleep again. There's a beautiful poem by Rumi, I think. Don't go back to sleep. It's the main line, recurring line in it. And he means in ignorance, the sleep of ignorance. A man has come to me from a land that never sleeps. Now all my dreams have been turned into radiant meditations. Basically a song about the guru, the man's guru in India. So he's come from a land that never sleeps, and therefore he will never fall back to sleep again. Why? Because he has yogic insomnia. He's learned the art of yogic insomnia. He can't fall asleep again because of what he knows. And what is it that showed him what he knows? His own intelligent particle vibrating in his own skull. That is, we think it's the skull as long as we're working on the brain, but when we come to transcend the brain and know ourselves as a great mind, then we see that we were slightly mistaken and we were assigning the intelligent particle to the brain, but actually it's in the great mind. And then we find it in the great mind and, oh, maybe it's not there. Maybe it's the light shining off of the word, Om. Maybe that's where intelligence comes from. And that's the best description I've ever heard of intelligence. It's the light shining off the word. You know, Om is the doorway to formlessness, and it's also the doorway back into form. That's how they describe it. The Trinity has Om painted on their bodies. This is the mudra of Abhayam, means for fearlessness. And this is the mudra of giving, Varada. So if one of the Trinity holds out their hands, they have Om written on their hand, just like this. Basically what they're saying to you is, this is the last form you will see if you pass beyond me. If you get to the Father through the Son, you will not see the Son anymore. I will dissolve. Or you will dissolve into me, I will dissolve into that. You get to the Father through the Son, as Christ said. So that's dissolving power at the highest station. However, what has got to be known too is that Om, in its constant vibration, also gives rise to worlds of name and form and beings, bodies. Bodies that are linga, bodies that are sukshma, and bodies that are karna, right? The gross, the subtle, and the causal bodies. But reverse those in this case because you're coming out of Brahman into the Word. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. The word was God. So you're leaving the word was God, and you're now approaching the word was with God. And you're separating yourself out from that, hopefully in an intelligent way, not forgetting yourself. And now you're becoming a form and entering into a world, and you take on a causal body. And then after you come further down, trickle down consciousness, you lose track of your subtle body, hopefully not forever, because there it is. You have to remain aware of it, right? Smriti Bedu, you have to remain aware that I have a causal body, and it is very important. It's close to Om. It's my doorway back to freedom. I don't want to forget that, like a wizard creating a world with a magic wand and then falling victim to the world being real and leaving his wand outside so he can never get out again. No, you don't want that to happen. So you trickle down, you'll develop a sukshma sharira, a subtle body, and you'll begin to see the heavens and the ancestors and the celestials, and you're working your way down to earth. See? This is called reconstructing the mind. You're going to need a mind to do that. You're going to take on a mind. This is precisely why you're not the mind. It's not just that you're not the body, you're also not the mind, ultimately. But the mind is the apex of all of that going on. It takes the light shining, the light of intelligence shining off the word Om, and fashions it into worlds. Life is a many-colored dome which stains the pure white light of reality. The poet Shelley said something like that. So the mind is like a crystal, a prism. You see, you take it on, take the light of intelligence, run the light of intelligence through it, turns into 5 colors, turns into 5 senses, turns into 5 elements. It's not that hard to understand, is it? So it's called involution and evolution, if you want to use sort of the words of the day. But basically, I think projection and dissolving, projection and dissolution is much more hits the spot, philosophically. Hits the spot for me. Because in that projection and the withdrawal, Brahman changes not. Beautiful. The unchanging. No transformation in it. So whenever I behold transformation taking place, the game's afoot. And I must become Sherlock Holmes of the spiritual worlds. See? The game's afoot, Dr. Watson. Let's go inspect the clues. See? There are 24 of them, I heard. And I know all about them and you don't know them yet. I'll show you when we get there. That's why I'm Sherlock and you're just Watson. So in and out the process goes, on the cosmic level, on the collective level, on the individual level, happening all the time, because although the bell showed us that the sound is struck, it's really not. It's an unstruck sound. They call Om the unstruck sound. They call Brahman the unseen seer. They call reality the inactive agent. They call the truth knower the unseen seer. It's the only way you can describe this one truth is by dichotomies, by apparent contradictions. Because those very contradictions will break down the mind, and when it does, the mind's dissolving already. The mind crystallizes around something, it's not going to be easy to get it to break down. It's going to crystallize around marine biology. See? Now water is the thing for me. See? That's it. But don't you want to know about our observatory on the Big Island? It's got lava. No, I'm into water. But Earth became water. You can come and watch it flow. You'll make a connection between Earth and water. Actually, air becomes water, doesn't it, when it rains? Heavy? Aren't the five elements, are they airtight compartments? Or are the five elements intermingled? Pancha style. Fives. See? Five elements, all contributing a little bit to an object. More ether, less air, more fire, less water, more earth. Whatever the case may be in any given object. On any given world, because on the higher worlds, now you're thinking of terms of how much subtle ether does that object have in my dream? And how much subtle earth does it have? You see? It's not just like, oh, let's try and describe the five elements here on earth, but how about trying to describe them in the causal state, or in the subtle state? How much of there is any of those? So basically what you're doing is you're coming to these pancha pranas and the tanmatras. You see, those are, you're dissolving them. There's basically, the prana turns into the psychic prana turns into Shakti. I brought a chart on that. We don't have time. Maybe we'll get to it next week. Live streaming next week, by the way, at our ashram in Honaka'a, about an hour away. So all of you can join us for that continuance of this Advaita Vedanta series. You can see, to us, Advaita Vedanta isn't just some word non-dual. Like I say, it really can't be taught. You just say, okay, welcome to my class on Advaita. Now I sit here for an hour without saying anything. That would be a class on Advaita. I agree. I concur. But you'll never know who you are until you know what you're not. And there are intelligent ways, with intelligent particles, to approach the what you're not, and why it's not happening or is happening, and where it's going on or where it's not happening, and what it is or what it's not. What it is, brah. The where, what, when, and why of things, you see. There are intelligent ways of approaching those W's, but it's all based on the who. Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? Atma Vichara. And so, are you going to look at a chart like the Jnana Matra chart or the Dissolving the Mind stream chart and tell me that that's not some of the most intelligent stuff you've ever heard or seen? The most interesting way of putting it you've ever come across. Have you seen anything like it in college? Have you heard anything from your parents about it? Has your friend come and talked to you about it over tea? Did it come up as a subject during your bingo game? Did the marine biologist tell you about it? Did you learn it at the observatory on the top of Mauna Kea? No. You'd need to have a cosmologist, and I don't mean a makeup artist, to tell you what it's about. See? They'd have to know the cosmology. They'd have to know the clues, the 24 clues along the trail, so they could tell you what it is you're dissolving and how you're bringing it back. You could say, okay, I understand you. The mind breaks down the worlds and it reconstructs them, and then walk away. It would sort of be like jumping in the ocean and say, okay, now I understand water, and walking away. So you've found one use for water, you've had one experience with water, and you think you know water. So that's how people like to try and jump to the chase, isn't it? The quick fix. But Vivekananda has told us that this philosophy will take us several lifetimes. And at the same time he told it it's the quickest way to get to truth. This Jnana Yoga is the quickest way to get to truth. So a lifetime or two, or if a Buddhist get a hold of you, they'll say 3 lifetimes to break down the 12 nidanas, then you'll be free. But whatever the case may be, this study is worthwhile, because if you could say, I can get free in 1 lifetime, that's great. You have something to look forward to real soon. You know the story. Narada was on his way to see Vishnu. One man approached him, said, oh, you're seeing Vishnu, I know you, you're Narada. Can you tell him how many lifetimes I have to live before I get free? Sure, I'll do that for you, my friend. So he went walking on. Another man came up, he sat there meditating, saw Narada, said, "You're going to see Lord Vishnu, aren't you? You're Narada, the sage, the Deva Rishi." And he said, "Yes, that's me." He said, "Well, can you ask Vishnu for me how many lifetimes I have before I get emancipation?" So Narada went and visited Vishnu somewhere in Vaikuntha. They had a great old talk. Two men entered into a Jnanakasha and had a discussion. And then on his way back, he saw the man who had been meditating, see, and brought him out of his meditation and said, "By the way, Vishnu said he knows you, he sees you, and you have just 3 more lifetimes to live before you're free." And the man started cursing. "I've been meditating all my life. I thought I would get free in this lifetime." And he was very unhappy. So Narada went along. He reached the other man who was dancing. And the other man said, "Oh, Narada, you saw Vishnu. How many lives did he say?" 1,000. 1,000. And the man went on dancing and said, "Only 1,000 lifetimes and I'll be free. Think of that." And he got Vishnu's grace at that moment and was free. Nothing is written in stone. Holy Mother Sri Sharda Devi used to say, "What the Mother of Wisdom has written in the book of karma, of destiny, she can also erase, you know." I mean, we're talking about intelligent people, right? She must be a very intelligent person. She's Chaitanas Chaitananam. She's the most intelligent of all those who are intelligent. She's Sarva Mangala Mangalye. She's the most auspicious of all of those who are considered to be most auspicious. So I'd like to meet her. But I've been looking for her in all the wrong places. I must now look inside, find my intelligent particle. That's streaming off of her, because she's the matron of the word. So if you trickle down here, this mind, then you're going to go into a state where mind itself, there you see it. Basically, manas, chitta, buddhi, ahamkara. Might as well add in psychic prana there, because you just looked at the pranas, the 5 pranas, and they're going to take on a more subtle form than just the power of digestion, the power of circulation, the power of upward moving, like a sneeze. That's a part of the prana. Downward moving. There are 5 different pranas, actually 1 prana in 5 forms, as Vedanta calls it. So you have to know that that prana is going to manifest in us in a more subtle form now, at the next level of dissolution. So basically that's back in the mind. It's called psychic prana. So you're learning to dissolve that too. Even very favored concepts you've been holding for lifetimes, or at least for decades, are probably going to break down there. So you can use the psychic prana to help break them down. It's carrying thoughts, so can it just easily drop them? This Garuda is flying along, you see, the great dragon bird, and you're on his back, see, and he's actually symbolizes the force that carries thought, and you're in a space of thought, and he's carrying you. Can't he just as easily drop you? So if you're a thought, or if you have thoughts, basically, can't you use the psychic prana just to drop them if it's carrying them? That which holds thought, can't it also empty it? These are keys to your meditation, really. Ways of telling you that when in meditation I'm not knowing what I'm encountering here, I'm sort of blind inside, you see. So things are coming up to me now. I'm having a better meditation after 30 years. So it probably takes about 20 or 30 years to have an actual good meditation. All that time before you were practicing concentration. So all of a sudden you get to a place where you're actually having what you could authentically and in all good faith call a good meditation, a real meditation. Then, it means you've gotten very good at dissolving the mind stream, dissolving thoughts. And if you're holding thoughts to be precious, like I say, if you've coagulated your mind, glommed on to something, and considered that to be the most ultimate thing for you, then that's where you'll stay. That thing most people think is the most ultimate thing to them, what is that? The body. They think they're the body. So this will never make sense to them, and they'll never go forward to prove whether it does or not, whether it is or not true, because they think they're the body. So that's where consciousness has gravitated to. In the fish body, he's gravitated to a fish in water with a set of gills, a bird with a pair of wings in the air. But you're a human with 2 arms and 2 legs in the flesh. You not only misassigned your consciousness, but you didn't even tell it the truth. You should have said, okay, take this body, but it's not yours. Here, have this set of actions, but they're not done by you. Here's some knowledge, but it's not the ultimate knowledge. Don't become attached to it. This is all dissolution. It's neti-neti. It's cutting time down. It's cutting space away. It's transcending bodies. It's transcending worlds. And this is what the spiritual aspirant learns to do. Pure and simple. No qualms. No 2 ways about it. The world can go on in its own merry way, but this is what you're doing. You come to understand it more and more over time. But you have to be engaged in it. So a system like this will show you. See, you're headed for the ocean of consciousness, aren't you? Here's the ocean of consciousness, and look what's right there just before it. Om, the pranava, the shabda, and the atman, the indivisible self, and then Brahman, and koivaya. Actually, there's a whole stream of souls you've caught up with, and they're all merging into the ocean with you. They're all losing their individuality. From the individual to the indivisible. They've made it. They made the grade. You caught up with them when you hit Om. See, now they're all merging in. That's called Kaivalya Pragbara, by one of the most ancient rishis in India. A stream of souls moving into dissolution. He saw it in his meditations. Sort of like Lord Buddha seeing the architect of the universe under the Bo tree. Wow, I see the way it works now. And all the power to you. More power to you, but I'm divorcing myself from this cycle, thank you. I'm bowing out. In the Upanishads, a great sloka where at the end of the monk's life he's beginning to feel like he's leaving the body. So he says, "Oh Lord, there's the sun in the sky. Please, take away that sun so I can see your real light. Take away the sun so I can see your real light." So it was like, I heard a story of one Swami once where went into a hotel room where he had to give a talk in a city. Beautiful view of the bay, like Vancouver, BC or something. He shut the curtains. His student said, "That's such a beautiful view, why are they shutting the curtain?" "Because I don't want anything out there. All I want is in here. I know what's out there already." It's like he's saying, with my wisdom particle, I know what's out there. There's nothing there that can satisfy me. There's nothing there that can fulfill me. There's nothing there that can entice me anymore. There's nothing there that can attract me. I'm moving towards the all-attracting one. And so you could say the dissolution of the mind stream is going on, but you have to say, what is that force that's impelling me towards it? What makes me want to dissolve myself? Because it's the same force that makes me go to sleep. I'm tired. I want to go into deep sleep. Nobody says that. They say, I just want to go to sleep. But if you knew a little bit more, you'd say, I want to go into deep sleep. Because in deep sleep you're not dreaming. So you're getting true reflection in deep sleep. even if you're in there for 30 minutes. But in dreaming, you can dream for hours and hours and just become a nervous wreck. Run yourself ragged. So this force that impels you towards dissolution, that is the awakening of your own intelligence, mother intelligence, Chit Shakti, the force of intelligence. It's like that prativa, it's like that flint-like intelligence that will never stop striking sparks. It's like that hound of heaven that is always pursuing you and will never give up until it finds you. Your own soul is looking for you because you lost it, or you gave it away. You traded it away for the trinkets of relative existence, for the glass baubles, for the marbles. You gave away the gold at the center of your being for the glass marbles of the world. That's a line in a song. Or if it isn't, I'm going to make it one. So turn instead to the original. Turn back to your original self. See? The self in all. The one indivisible self. There can be no other. And live in that self. Whether no matter where you are, in what akasha, or what body you're inhabiting. And that is beyond all goals. So you're not reaching for goals anymore. You're living the goal. You are the goal itself. So on the way from the mind, you're going to have to look at this great mind. It's called Mahat. Look at what's in it. The power of projection, the power of sustenance, the power of dissolution, the cosmic laws called kalas, time and space. Causation is in it, all karma, that is karma at a very cosmic level. Now, the real earth, air, fire, water, and earth are there. Look at that five. That five panchavata. Panchakasha, tapa, or panchakasha. Solidity, liquidity, luminosity, homogeneity, and all pervasiveness. Route them back here. Solidity is earth, liquidity is water, luminosity is fire, homogeneity is air, and all pervasiveness is ether. So now you know where the connection between your individual mind and the cosmic mind is. That earth, air, fire, water, and ether are just thoughts in God's mind. That's why they're called the Maha Pancha Bhutas, the great five elements. You can't just look at them here. They're great enough here, aren't they? I mean, look how attracting they are to people. 5 elements is everything. Their body's made of 5 elements. All beings, fish, birds, bears, human beings, they want the 5 elements. And they want to congeal them. And they want to combine them so they can have bodies and places to lay their head. But remember what Christ said. Birds have nests, foxes have holes. But the Son of Man has no place to lay his head here. So you should keep that in mind. Keep that as a grain of sand in your bed. As a fly in your ointment. As a strand of hair in your food. As a monkey in your wrench. Keep that idea and know that through renunciation, man reaches freedom. Through renunciation of all he projects. If he gets involved in his own projection, he has no one else but himself to blame for it. And karma and suffering are his. But if he learns how to dissolve his mind back and forth, not just in waking, dreaming, and deep sleep states, like here, unconsciously, but actually doing it in his meditations every day, practicing it, then he will become conversant with all the ways of the wisdom mother and all the ways of his own consciousness. He will be able to have concourse with everything that's within him, the kingdoms of heaven within him, but he will remain free as a Jivan Mukta. So here we have run out of time, friends, everywhere, and we will end with a chant and then have some announcements after we end our live streaming. Om Tach Nayo, Om Tach Nayo Ravrini Mahe, Gatong Yagyaya Gatong Ye Nupataye, Daivi Swastirastu Naha, Swastir Manuse Byaha, Urdvam Jagatu Bhesajam, Samnoastu Dvipade Samchatushpate, Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we offer all unto the Great Self. May we always delight in this offering. May we always revere the Lord and Mother of all sacrifices. May divine blessings be upon us. May peace be unto the entire human race. May healing, well-being, and prosperity then also abide among us. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us. May peace be unto all. Om Hari Om.
Vasudeva Sarva, Vasudeva Sarva, Ekameva Dvaitiyam, Vasudeva Sarva.